Welcome to this Jodel webinar on the 27th of July 2020. It's our absolute pleasure this evening to have Martin Lapworth, who has been able to encourage 516 people to register for tonight's event. And as we speak, there are 179 people in the room. We're expecting many more to appear in the next hour and a half or so. Martin's going to be showing us Textivate and TeachVid, two resources which he has created, and how they can be, he's going to be describing how they can be used in relation to creating parallel text activities, as well as many other different activities. So I'm sure that you're going to find this session really, really useful. And I'm going to hand over to Martin now. Enjoy. If you have a question, please put it in the chat. And yeah, I can't wait to see exactly how we can use these different tools in order to enhance all four skills in the languages classroom. Over to you, Martin, and you're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. Right, I'll just quickly start by saying why I'm talking about parallel texts. I know that for me, when I talk about parallel text, I mean any situation where you're using an L1 text, so if you're an English speaker, an English text, to help you to understand or to work with a foreign language text. I know that over the last few years, there's certain teachers have started using what they call parallel text knowledge organizers, which is a way of presenting key structures for a particular topic or unit of work, and in a way that gets students to annotate the parallel text to make them familiar with different quirks, such as difficulties in pronunciation and that kind of thing. I don't really know anything about that side of parallel text, but I am going to be using something that's taken from somebody's parallel text knowledge organizer to demonstrate the tools Textivate and TeachVid tonight. Okay, so I'll start by looking at Textivate. Now, some people tell me Textivate is quite complicated, but in the beginning, Textivate the idea was super simple. The idea behind Textivate is that you take a text, which I'm going to copy now. You paste it into a text box and you click on Textivate and you get loads of interactive activities automatically generated based on your text. So nothing could be simpler in terms of creating interactive resources. In the beginning, before we added lots of other things like parallel text and matching and text-to-speech and these various other things, the focus of Textivate was squarely on text reconstruction and memorization. I know that to start with, when Textivate first came out, a lot of teachers were using it to get their students to memorize their own prepared written answers or spoken answers for their GCSE oral exams and so on. So, but it's developed beyond that now. But I'll show you quickly the kind of activities that it generates just by dropping in a text and clicking on that button. So we have things like tiles activities where the student has to try and put these sections of text in the correct order to reconstruct the original text. Now, you can see that if a student was approaching a text like this and it was an unknown text to them, it's quite a challenge for them because they have to look at all the text segments and try and work out where where one segment can lead into another, what kind of word has to start the whole thing, what kind of word can possibly come next after that word. And so it's all about looking for context clues within the text. So it's pure text reconstruction. And obviously, if you're more familiar with the text and the more you work with the text, which was initially unknown, it becomes more of a memorization activity. So you're moving from pure text reconstruction into memorization. And so we have all kinds of text jigsaw reading type activities, like this one. And we have that at various different levels, so you can start really simple, and if you're working with a text that you're trying to learn or memorize, you can start with only 6 sections of text and then work your way up to 24 sections of text, and then you can move on to the more challenging activities that are not just about moving text around, but are about writing in text. So it's, the focus is much more on spelling and writing skills. But I'll quickly show you a couple more of the games before we move on to talk about other things. So we have,
while you're doing that, Martin, I hope you don't mind me interrupting, but we've got a couple of people asking questions around sort of languages that Textivate works with, e.g., does it work with Arabic, Korean, Japanese, and Chinese characters, for example?
okay, Arabic's tricky because of the right to left nature of it, because all of the kind of text sorting and chopping up actions that Textivate performs assume that it goes from left to right. So unfortunately, I know that there are some Arabic teachers and I think possibly Hebrew teachers who do use it, but it's kind of much more limited than it would be with a left to right text. The same kind of caveat applies to character-based languages such as Chinese and Japanese and Korean. There's a user guide on the Textivate blog. If you go to the Textivate main page and click on the little user guides link, there's one, if you scroll down, there's one that's about character-based languages. And it basically explains that the way that Textivate works to chop up text is it has to recognize words. And so if you have a language like Chinese where it's all characters and there aren't any word separations, Textivate doesn't know what to do. So you have to artificially group your Chinese characters into meaning-based chunks in such a way that Textivate can then it can work out how to chop it up. And as well as that, there's also a limitation on on some of the text entry activities. Basically, the text entry activities where you have a keyboard and you're typing out the answers, they essentially only work with the Roman script characters. That's okay. About five activities out of 30 for a text.
So there's still plenty to do. That's brilliant. And what about Russian? Does that work with all the activities?
Well, Russian would be the same. Russian is fine because it's left to right and because it has words. But even the text entry ones, the keyboard requires you to use Roman script alphabet. So, okay. So again, there is that limitation. You'll lose about 5 out of 35 activities on text, and similar on the match side, which I'll come to later.
Superb. Thank you. That's great.
I'm going to quickly show you a couple of activities that people may have seen before. People who are familiar with Task Magic back in the day will recognize football.
I used to use that all the time. You probably remember me contacting you about it, but back in the day when I was off, in the early days of going off and doing talks and whatever, I would set the children Task Magic activities as well as when I was there, obviously, as well. And they used to absolutely love it, particularly the football one. I used to play the theme music of Match of the Day in class, and they used to absolutely love it. In fact, they always used to say, "He's offside, sir, he's offside," when they would score the goal. But there we are.
Yeah, there's always that goal hanger there, isn't there?
Yeah.
The difference between football in Textivate and TeachVid is that, and Task Magic is that in Textivate you can play against the computer, so you don't have to be sat next to somebody else. So, for example, if I'm playing a one-player game that lasts for a minute and I start the game, I'm playing against the computer. So I've got the ball, I've got to get the answer correct. Now I can pass. And as with Task Magic, if you try long passes and shots, they're less accurate than the shorter ones. Try shot, goal. Okay.
Hey.
And now it's the other team's play, and I'm doing nothing now. They're just going to score against me.
We've got another question, Martin, if that's okay. So Alejandro has asked, is this tool accessible, e.g. ADA compliant? Can it be used by a screen reader, for example? Do you know? I
don't think so.
Okay.
I'm not sure. We've never implemented anything like that, so I couldn't tell you. Okay.
Great, thank you.
But I'll move on. So we have millionaire games. So this is where you have to reorder the text to and not get any questions wrong in order to win $1 million. And we have other games such as, I don't know, Invaders. So we have a word invaders game here. So where 5 words have been taken out of that section of text, and we're going to click on them in the correct order before the blocks hit my lines there. All kinds of activities like that, and we have snake activities. Whoop.
So are all the activities that are in Task Magic also in Textivate? Because someone's asked the question, is Textivate very different from Task Magic then? They're quite similar, aren't they, I think?
Elements of them are. Obviously it's web-based, and there's all kinds of storing options and homework options you've got with Textivate that you wouldn't have with Task Magic. I've written a blog post comparing Task Magic and Textivate. I think it's on the Textivate blog.
And it works on all devices as well, doesn't it? Textivate, whereas Task Magic would only work on Windows PCs, I think I'm right in saying.
Yeah, big difference.
Brilliant.
Okay. Well, so anyway, so that's in the beginning. There was, what's happened? I've lost my text there. I don't know what happened there. I'm going to blame Zoom. Anyway, so there's the beginning with our text. Now, and then after about a year, I think we decided to add the option to add matching items. So I'll start a new resource. I'll add in some matching items, which I've copied. And so the match side of it is very like any other kind of flashcard vocab learning app. Sorry, I've put that in the wrong place. Let's go there. In that you put in a list of matching items, and it gives you all kinds of vocab matching activities. So you have things like this one where you have to just basically match up the French and the English, and so on. You've got activities such as 3 in a row, which you can also play against the computer. Oh, got it wrong. Whoops. Now it's the computer's turn. And so anyway, every 3 squares in a row scores you a point, and you're playing against the computer. You've also got activities such as snake. I use it as a camera. See how that works. And games such as maze, where you're steering around a maze, steering the yellow Pac-Man type square around the maze, being chased by the monster, and you just have to click on the correct. One with an accent, and so on. And the monster chases you, and it starts off slowly, and it gets quicker, and then there are 2 monsters, then 3, then 4, and it becomes quite an exciting game.
That's
anyway,
fantastic.
So
I'm sure the kids love that.
Yeah.
We've got another question from Jane, if that's okay. How can you set these activities in a computer room situation, and can you set them on Google Classroom, etc.?
Set them on Google Classroom in terms of then seeing feedback on Google Classroom, do you mean?
Well, so the whole question is, how can you set these activities in a computer room situation? I presume if it's the same as Task Magic, you basically say the activities you'd like them to do, or you give them the core text or content that you want them to access, and then you just let them get on with it, as it were. See, it's not. Am I right in saying you can't like give them all the activities? You just have to tell them what they are, and then they then get on with it. Is that right?
No, you can provide a link to the resource, which will take them to the menu page, which is what we're seeing in front of us here, the activity
okay
menu.
So you could share that via Google Classroom, therefore, couldn't you?
And you can also share links directly to different activities. Now I'm working with text that I've put into Textivate here, that's just in the browser. It hasn't been uploaded anywhere.
Okay.
So it's just being passed around in the local storage cache of the browser at the moment. Yeah, because we're not uploaded anything. If you have a look at the matching items I've put there, this is essentially the same, exactly the same as the first text that I put in as a text, but broken down into clauses, sentences, chunks, and so on. So if you look, that's what it follows. Say, pendant mon temps libre, je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur, et j'utilise. So it's the same text. Now I've seen a lot of people when I go look around at activities that people have uploaded to Textivate, I see that a lot of people who use parallel text, knowledge organizers, use Textivate in this way. So they create kind of like a parallel text type activity by breaking their parallel text down into English and French, and then putting that into as matching items into Textivate. So this allows you to do things, for example, like with flashcards. If we choose to show the text in the original order, then it will go through the text. It'll go through the text as if we were reading the text from start to finish, and we've got various clue options that we can use for this. So if students are testing themselves, they can just look at that and see if they can remember it. But they can also do things like change the clue so that it shows the text with the vowels missing, or with consonants missing, or with initial letters shown, and so on. So this is just a flashcards thing. There's no kind of internal assessment on this. It's you click it when you know it, or if you don't know it. If you knew it, you click on the tick, and if you didn't know it, you click on the cross, and it'll be repeated after all the items. But it's a good way of going through the whole text. So it is sort of like running through a whole reading text with the English as a prompt and rebuilding the French or the foreign language. So je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur, and so on. And the same thing applies to various other activities, such as jumbled words, for example, jumble. So this one it's launched itself automatically in random order, but if I click on the original order, it will work exactly the same as the way we had it with flashcards. So now we can go through the whole text. section by section, and so on. Okay, I'm going to be super conscious of the time, because when I saw...
No, you're fine. You're good. We just got another question now in the chat. How easily does this work in languages where the word order isn't as in English, e.g. with German infinitives at the end, etc.?
But this works perfectly well, because you just write out, you make sure that the section that you put into the matching pairs works out. So if you're going to have a sentence with a verb at the end, well, it'll appear that way in German. It'll appear in its normal English order in English.
Yeah.
What you probably would be difficult to do is if you wanted to split one of those clauses halfway through, so that you've got the vile part, but you've not got the verb at the end, for example. That wouldn't make a lot of sense to do that. So you've got to think about how you want to construct your activities.
That's fine. We've got another question from Cider, which is, what is the difference between parallel text and knowledge organizer? But I suppose because there's so many definitions of what a knowledge organizer is, I think that's really an impossible question to answer. Really, I would suggest,
especially
Cider, just go onto the Facebook group, knowledge, whatever it's called, MFL or knowledge organizers for MFL teachers, whatever it is, and then you can see that there are lots of different types of knowledge organizers. So that's a really hard question to answer, I think.
Yeah, and as I say, I'm not an expert on that at all. Yeah. I've been putting parallel text into Textivate for a few years, and then I recently came across people from the Michaela School. I think they started this idea of parallel text knowledge organizers, and thought, well, that fits perfectly with what with Textivate. So that's why I'm kind of using that as a thread.
Lovely. Can you add images in Textivate? I don't think you can you?
You can, yeah.
You can. Okay, great. Great.
You have to have them uploaded somewhere. So, for example, if you've got a load of images in your Dropbox account, you can add images and create matching activities.
Lovely.
But that's not going to fall within the remit of our parallel text focus today.
No, of course, that's fine. But it's just we had a question. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. So I'll stop. No, it's fine. No, yeah. Let's focus on the content. I know that people have lots of questions, but I think if we focus on the content now, it'd be great.
But I'll say that in answer to that question, that as with previous, that if you go to the Textivate blog and the user guides, there is a section on creating match activities with images. There are, I think there's probably 100 or so user guides there for various different things, because there's so many different things that you can do. Okay, I'm going to go back to the start page, and so we've sort of looked at parallel texts using matching items. Now, there's no reason. This is another thing about Textivate that makes it different from many other tools. There's no reason why we can't have. We can create a text-based resource, and we can create a match-based resource, but in Textivate, you can do both at once. So if I put that text back in there into the text box, and those matching items in that box, we now have two sets of activities to choose from, text activities and match activities. And we also have now on the menu screen, you will see that because it's used exactly the same text here, it automatically glosses it, so that you can click into this, and it'll tell you what the English means. So as you're reading, if you're not sure about the meaning of anything, you can do that kind of thing as well. Is the gloss appearing there? Is there a yellow box appearing?
Yeah, it is. We've got another question, if it's okay. Can the students make their own activities, or is it all through the teacher? Like, with other tools that the students can make their own activities. Is that possible?
Students can make their own activities, but they'll only be for their own use. And basically, I made a video tutorial on that a couple of weeks ago, which explains how they have to have a student login, and then they have to basically type and paste in their text. And then if they want to reuse it at a later date, they have to copy it out somewhere else into an email or a doc, Google Doc or something. So it's a matter of pasting it in whenever you want to use it, because you can't actually upload anything on the student account.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Right, I'm going to move on to looking at proper parallel text now. So that was just using sort of parallel text functionality using matching items. Now, if we go back to our menu screen, to our edit screen, our creation screen here, we have a tab called Extras. And on this Extras tab, we have all sorts of options for adding extra things to our resource. So we can add videos, we can add an audio, we can add a big image that appears next to the activities. And we can also add a parallel text, which in most cases tends to be an English translation or an L1 translation of the main text. So I've copied and pasted in an English translation of our French text there. And you'll now see that when I click on Textivate, it's exactly the same as before. We've got our text menu and we've got our match menu. But we've also got a new icon at the top, which is the parallel text icon. And if we click on this, the parallel text in English appears next to all of our activities. Now, what this did essentially was change the focus of Textivate from being one that was all about pure text reconstruction and memorization, and it added all kinds of possibilities to do with scaffolded translation. So now the activities, the text activities in particular, you're no longer sort of doing them just focusing on the French or the Spanish text or whatever it may be. It's not just text reconstruction anymore. You've got something to refer to. You've got the English as a structural basis to help you to reconstruct the French or the foreign text. So it means also that we're no longer working with a text where there is any possibility that the student doesn't know what the text is supposed to mean. So because you can imagine a situation where if you gave someone an activity such as this one, I'll just remove the parallel text. If there's words there they don't know what they mean, and it's the first time they come across it, there's a lot of guessing that will have to go on in the first instance. But by adding a parallel text, you're basically saying, right, here's a load of chunks of text, put them in the same order, in the correct order, so they mean the same as this English here. So now you're not just looking to see, well, how could this text possibly start? You're looking to see which bit of French means during my free time. And so the focus has changed completely now. So it's not memorization. I mean, there is, the more you work through it, there will be an element of memorization because you naturally end up memorizing the text anyway. And there is still an element of text reconstruction because you're looking at, well, what comes after sur? I'm looking for a noun probably, or some kind of noun phrase. But it's no longer pure text reconstruction. You've got something to refer to help you structure the French. And it also means that it makes it a lot easier to work with Textivate with text that students haven't seen before, because as I say, they're not going to be in a situation where they're thinking, well, I have no idea what this is even supposed to make when it's finished. They've got the English to refer to, which tells them, well, when I finish this activity, the French is supposed to say this. So you're kind of working your way through to build the text. So if I show you a couple of other examples of that, for example, we have a multi-choice activity. So here
we've got a couple of people in the chat saying they're loving the parallel text activity that you're showing right now, which is great to hear, isn't it?
Yeah, excellent. So this one is just a 1 in 3 multiple choice. There are a couple of other options for this as well, but basically clicking to rebuild the original text. So je passe beaucoup de, I spend a lot of, when I'm looking for the word that means time. So you can see how having the English there makes the activity much more doable. It doesn't make it necessarily any less of a test of linguistic ability. It just means that you know what you're supposed to be building in the first place. So it makes it easier, but not necessarily easier in that way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And also we can do things like gap fill. So now you're not just looking at a text with a load of gaps and a load of words at the bottom and thinking, well, which one could possibly go there, and relying purely on context clues. You've also got the English to refer to, so that you know, well, the first bit there is supposed to say during my free time. So how do we say that? That's probably the word during that I'm looking for. And so I think it was quite transformative. It changed Textivate from, as I say, from being a memorization tool to being something that had a much different focus, much more on translation. Okay.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Very, very on message as well. I can see that you've got the print button there. We've had the question a couple of times, can you print off activities so they can be done as on paper worksheets as you could with Task Magic with Textivate?
Yes.
Lovely.
It doesn't include the parallel text. None of the print options include the parallel text, but if that's a gap fill, for example, and if I go back to the one of the tiles activities, for example, we can print this and it looks like that. And I was just going to show we're talking about translation, and I was going to kind of the most almost proper translation here. For example, we have all these these are the letter entry activities that I referred to before, which won't work with non-Roman script languages, but we've got ones where the vowels have been removed, ones where we have the initial letters, and ones where all we have is the shapes and the punctuation. So this is almost approaching proper translation here. So you can see the size and the shape of the words, and you can see you know, you've got some idea what it is you're trying to put together, and you know that what you're trying to write is supposed to say during my free time. So obviously, as you work your way through the activities, this can be one of the latter stage ones where you're properly testing the student's ability to write the text. So it's practicing their writing skills as well. And also you can print a worksheet for this.
Fantastic. So you could print it off as a PDF if you wanted to, couldn't you, presumably? So instead of choosing the your printer, the Brother MFC, what have you, you could choose the save as PDF instead. Great. Absolutely, yeah. So it's not all of the screens have a PDF printable option, but a lot of them do. I'm just going to go and quickly show you one more sort of parallel text option, which is quite nice. On the Extras tab, if you scroll down to beyond the parallel text, you've got more parallel text options, and there's 4 checkboxes there, and the second one says use the main Textivate text as the parallel text for match activities. And if we click on that, what that basically does is, if we go to our menu now and we open the parallel text, so for the menu we see the English parallel text. For the text activities, we see the English parallel text by the side. But for all of the match activities, for example, flashcards, we now see the French text, which is our main text for our resource, now appears as a parallel text for the match activities, and that allows us to to have several sort of find the French type activities. So, for example, if we now put the flashcards in random order and we begin our activity, so now we're told we need to look for, but now I find it hard to imagine. And so the student, if the student knows that, fair enough, they can just click on it straight away and say, yeah, I got that correct. They can use clues as before, so they can use initials clues, but they can also read through the text to see if they can find it if they're not sure what it should be. Now, obviously, they might not be inspired to do that kind of thing with these flashcards where they're just self-testing, but activities such as jumble, for example, if we change it to random order, as I said, so that it's not going through it in order. So now we're trying to find, but now I find it hard to imagine. And so we can look in there and try and find those words. Mais maintenant, j'ai du mal à imaginer. Okay. And the same applies to the text entry ones, like initials, for example, but most of the time. So now we're looking at it in random order. We're trying to find the French that means, but most of the time. Not quite sure if I can remember how to say it, but if I look in the text, I might find a sequence of words from the text which will fit with that. So you can see it's kind of it's scaffolded find the French activities is what we've got there. Is it okay? Well, Joseph in the chat to say, can you show us that again, please? How did you switch back to the French text on the left? I know we're recording this, but is it okay just to show quickly? Is that all right?
Yeah, no, I didn't have to do anything. All I did was by clicking that checkbox to use the main text as the parallel text for match activities. As soon as I click into any of the match activities, the text will be the French one.
Lovely.
Okay? Whereas for the menu and for the text activities, it will be the English one.
Right.
Okay.
In the chat, Ramesh has asked whether it's possible to change the background colours for, say, students with special educational needs, for example, I'm thinking.
There are colour scheme options, but
there we are.
But I'm not sure if they help with your special educational needs.
Okay, but you can change the background.
You can set them. You've got basically 5 or 6 colour options that you can scroll through. That's what that is. Yeah,
that's great.
Okay. I'm conscious that we're half an hour in already, so I'm a bit
don't worry. I think that's the thing when you have lots of people and lots of questions. But I mean, we can stop the questions for a minute and then we can look at those at the end. But we're going to have a lot of questions to deal with. But feel free if you want to.
I don't mind the interruptions. I'm just trying to speed things up my end. That's all really.
That's okay.
Now we've looked at kind of scaffolded translation by using parallel text, and another thing we can do through the extras tab is we can add text to speech. So this top section here, text to speech, we can add a speech engine for our French text, and we have English to French matching items. So we don't need anything for the English, but for the French, for the right hand match, which is French, we'll add the text to speech. And now we click through. And we can see that everything, we've got little speaker icons all over the place, which when we click them, will read out our bits of text to speech. Now, I'm not. When I tried this, I said to you before, Joe, this comes through quite loud, so I hope it isn't overbearing.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Pendant mon temps libre,
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur.
So, and now you're providing students with an audio model. Now, you may argue it's not the best audio model because it's computer-generated speech, but generally, I find it does give reasonable pronunciation for words. Sometimes the intonation's a bit off, but it's better than nothing. And if you want to, for a rough and ready way of providing an oral model for the students, so that they're not just looking at that, and they could have done all those activities we've seen before, and be saying to themselves, pendant mon temps libre, couldn't they? But now they've got the text to speech, at least they know it probably doesn't sound like that, and it's supposed to sound something like that.
Pendant mon temps libre.
Okay. So
can you just clarify how to enable that? Because I just missed it because I was looking at the chat, because we have a couple of people asking about the text to speech.
Yeah. So it's in the extras tab.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And it's there at the top.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's great. We've got another couple of questions, if it's okay. So Oliver's asked, does the platform enable students to manipulate and refashion the language, or is it all based on a given exact translation?
It's all based on reconstructing the original text.
Yeah. Okay. So so it's down to either the teacher or the students to put in a text, and then it will then generate the activities as a result. Is it possible for does the teacher have the ability to individualize the options per pupil, e.g. to support individual skill development for the children, or is it down to them to choose the activities that they do? Is that right?
They can. You can provide links if you're prepared to provide links on an individual basis to each student. Then you can certainly do that if you want to. But it's. I mean, there's all kinds of differentiation built into this. It's just, but I'm not sure if the students themselves are the best at knowing what's best for them. But,
yeah.
I mean,
fair enough.
Some will and some won't. So, yes, you can provide very detailed. If you wanted to, on a per student basis, you could say, right, I want you to do this link, this link, this link, and so on, all based on the same resource. Yeah. I'll quickly show you some how this text to speech affects some of the activities now. So
good idea.
Very quickly though. So now this tiles activity that we looked at before, you see that we've got some text to speech options that have appeared at the bottom there. If we choose this as text to speech sections, which is what we have in this drop down menu here, it means that each section, which is a sentence, will be spoken by the text to speech. So it'll sound like this.
Pendant mon temps libre, je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur. Et j'utilise mon portable régulièrement pour envoyer des emails et pour partager des photos.
Okay, so you can see now that obviously you've provided all kinds of oral support, listening support to the students. So they may still choose to look at all the context clues and all the rest of it, but if they're listening to the French, they should be able to follow what's being said and put the chunks of text in order. Let me quite quickly show you a couple more.
We've just had a quick question about feedback, which I think you've just answered anyway. Does it provide feedback on each activity? I mean, it does, doesn't it? It gives you feedback for...
Well, it'll provide you feedback at a per interaction level, in the sense that if you drop something that's wrong there, then it won't be correct. And if it is correct, it'll appear green. And at the end of each activity, if there's a pop-up that shows you your score for that activity, your correct interactions, percentage score, and so on. And using things such as sequences and challenges, that's another way of providing feedback, which I'll hopefully come on to later in a couple of minutes, just to show you how they work. I'll just quickly show you how, for example, this now becomes a dictation activity.
Pendant mon temps libre, je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur.
Okay, so without a parallel text and without the text to speech, this becomes an activity that requires people to look at a series of words and try and work out how they fit together as a sentence. But by providing the text to speech, we've essentially created a kind of dictation activity. So we're not actually having to spell the words in this activity, but we are listening for the words as they're spoken, so that we can pick them out from the spoken stream of words. So it works on various levels. Obviously, there are some activities that are easier than others, and as you work through the levels, you've created all kinds of differentiated, scaffolded dictation activities that develop all kinds of micro skills, such as this one. Here, you've got all of the letters in the text with all the punctuation and spaces removed. So it's kind of a stream of letters. And in your speech, you've got a stream of sound. And the students have to listen and work out, maybe from previous exposure to the words, they can remember where the word boundaries are. But it helps them to familiarize themselves with recognizing those word boundaries when they hear the language spoken as well.
Pendant mon temps libre, je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur. Et j'utilise mon portable régulièrement pour envoyer des emails et pour partager des photos.
And if you're not sure, you can click on the hint button and it will show you where the next one is, which you can go through if you want with the teacher in front of the class if you want to do it quickly. Using the hints affects your scores. That's why it says I've only got 3% there for this activity at the moment. And at its most difficult level, I suppose, just like we had with the no letters activity before, this now becomes a dictation activity. So I'll choose a shorter one to play because you can play them in any order on this.
Néanmoins, il faut toujours être prudent, car il est très facile de devenir accro.
See, I wasn't listening, that's the trouble there.
Néanmoins, il faut toujours être prudent, car il est très facile de devenir accro.
So that's essentially a dictation activity. And so you've seen how we've added, by adding the parallel text, we've created translation activities. By adding text to speech, we've added dictation activities. But what if we combine them both together? And so if we combine them both together, we're starting to approach something which was kind of what inspired me to create TeachVid. And I'll show you the kind of thing I mean, really. I mean, so what we got here is we've got dictation and translation activities appearing together. For example,
can the teachers upload their own audio
Dans
if they
mon
want
temps
to?
libre, je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur.
yeah. So in the extras tab that we saw on the home screen, there is an option to link an audio, but it's an audio for the whole resource. There's one audio for the whole resource. So if you record the whole French text and you upload it to Dropbox or somewhere like that, and then you put the link into there, then you'll have an audio player appear at the top of the screen. But you can't have the audio and the parallel text. You can only have one or the other.
Right.
Something I tried to solve when I developed TeachVid. But so the way of getting dictation and translation together in Textivate is by using text to speech and parallel text. And so what you have with an activity like this is you've got dictation, listening micro skills going on. You're listening out for the words as they appear. You've also got scaffolded translation, and you've got text reconstruction with all those context clues. And so there's lots of things going on there all at once. Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate there's lots of questions, but is it okay if you just answer, can the students pause the audio to give them time to write? Is that possible?
With text, if you've added your own audio, as you mentioned before,
yeah.
So it's an audio, it'll be an audio player, so you can pause that, yeah, at any time. So you can play the bit of audio, pause it, do whatever you've got to do, and then move on. With the text to speech, it will play the section as defined by the activity. Yeah?
Okay. Okay, because we have a lot of people in the chat. I'm sure people appreciate that I can't stop every single time there's a question. I appreciate you have questions. I'm sure Martin is more than happy to be contacted afterwards about the questions, but I can't put every single question because otherwise we won't get an opportunity to look at TeachVid, which is what Martin obviously and myself want to do as well. Yeah. So I will obviously ask some questions, but I can't ask every single question. I'm sure people appreciate the reason for that.
I'm going to put something in the chat, which is a link to a resource if people want to open this.
Cool, thank you.
And I'm going to open that resource myself now. So what I'm looking at now is it's almost the same resource as the one we have here, but I've just done something slightly different to it. If you look on the edit screen now, you can see that doesn't appear to be one continuous text. It's because I've added a chunked tag into it, and I've put the different split each paragraph or sentence up into smaller meaning-based chunks. So pendant mon temps libre is one chunk. Je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur, and so on. These are all useful meaning-based chunks that we can refer to step by step. And what that does is it affects a couple of the activities, in particular the multiple choice activity, but also all of those tiles activities. And I'll show you how that works. So now, if I go to multi-choice, 1 in 3, okay, and we add our parallel text back in, and we've got our text-to-speech enabled, and you'll see it appears the same as before in quite long sections here. But we've got these two options at the bottom, words and sentences. And what sentences does is if you click this option, it will split it according to either full stops or line breaks in your text. And because we've chunked our text in the edit screen so that we've got it broken down into lots of little chunks separated by line breaks, it means that if we choose that sentences option here, it will reload. But now we're rebuilding the whole text using those chunks that we've defined. And this can be it's a really good way of focusing on the text chunk by chunk. It allows you to decide where the splits get made in the text. So now this is a chunk by chunk translation activity. And if we decide to speak it, then we can play it.
Pendant mon temps libre, je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur. Et j'utilise mon portable régulièrement pour envoyer des emails et pour partager des photos.
Okay. And I've spoken to you a lot about these things that you can click on all of the screens to do with, I don't know, the number of tiles, or whether or not the words get shown for gap fill, or whether to show it as words or sentences and so on. This is when you mentioned before about fine-tuning an activity for various different students. This is how activity sharing works. This is an uploaded resource, so it allows me to share a link to it. What I had before, I hadn't saved it, and I've now got rid of that. But once it's uploaded, and it's either a public or shareable resource, you'll see a share option appear at the top there. And so, for example, if we want to share to exactly this configuration that we have on the screen now, we can click on share. We can say link embed to this page, link to this page. We're going to include the parallel text. That's what that option means there. And then we're going to go to the fine-tuning link here, and that'll give us various other options. And now for fine-tuning, we can either decide to have no fine-tuning, in which case it'll just open the page with the parallel text showing. We can choose to enforce the configuration, which means that when the students land on that activity, they can't change it. They can't change whether or not text-to-speech shows, or whether it's words or sentences. They can't show or hide the word list. They can't turn off auto check and various other things. Or you can set it as an initial configuration. But we're going to enforce it. We're going to split it by sentences, which is the configuration we have now on this screen. And we're going to turn on the text-to-speech sections so that the student can access this if they want to as a translation and dictation resource together, which rebuilds the text chunk by chunk. So by choosing all those options, we close that box, and that has updated the URL in that box there. And we can copy that and we can paste that in an email to somebody, or put it on a web page or whatever, or we can tweet it, or we can share it by Facebook, or we can share it with a class. So if we set up classes through the classrooms option, the classes option on Textivate, we can share that link directly with the class. So I've got a class here that I set up called training, and I'll choose to share that with the class. Okay, it's been shared successfully. And if I now go back to the Textivate homepage, and I click on the classes option, I'll see that within the group training, I have some assigned links, and we have the activity 1 in 3 with a parallel text. That's the name, that's the title of the resource. And if we click the link, it arrives there exactly as we configured it. Yeah. So there's all kinds of things you can do. You could have chosen to show it without the parallel text, and you can do that with lots of different activities. So for example, you can choose to show gap fill with 20 gaps, but without the word list showing, and auto check turned on or off, or text to speech turned on or off. These are all different parameters that you can specify when you fine tune the link to an activity.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. Can you share a sequence in the same way?
Yes, I'll show you how that works. So
okay, because we've had that question a couple of times. Yeah, that's why I'm asking, because we've had, when we have individual questions, I'm sort of leaving them, but when we've had a couple of people asking the same question, I think that's fair enough. So
you mentioned sequences are a part of Textivate which allow you to set sequences of activities which are pre-configured, just like we've just done with that activity link there, which usually have a pass mark, or they don't have to have a pass mark, but very often have a pass mark, which means that students have to do the activities in the order specified, and they can't move on to the next question until they've hit the pass mark. So I'll quickly show you how that works. you'll see this resource already has a sequence added, and I'll quickly show you how that works. So here we have a sequence. It has a multi-match 1 in 3, which is a vocab activity. In random order, the items will appear as not switched. There'll be English prompts requiring French answers, and there's no text-to-speech, and we have a target of 60%. So all these different things that you can select here, they're exactly the same things that you can select when you're sharing a link to an activity, or when you're configuring an activity on an activity page. And so we've set up our sequence like that. And you'll see, as a result of that, of having a sequence as part of the resource, we also have a link to sequence option in our share thing there. And that will link directly to the sequence. If you particularly want your sequence to appear with the parallel text already enabled, then you can go to any screen that has a parallel text possibility. For example, I don't know what happened there. I think I'm having some problems with the internet. It took a little while. Okay, so here we have a screen with parallel text. So the menu screen and any of the activity screens, you can click on the parallel text to open it. And once you've got it open with the parallel text visible, you'll also see the option to link to sequence, but also to include the parallel text. And so if I now create a link to that predefined sequence for my class and add it to my class and click on share, and now we go back. And we go back to classes, we'll see that we now have 2 links. We have the 1 in 3 activity, and we also have a sequence. And if we click on that link, it'll open the sequence there with the parallel text showing. Now, note that it's showing the French text because we've configured it so that it will show the main French text as the parallel text for all matching activities. And what we're looking at here for our first activity is a matching activity. Yeah?
Yeah, fantastic.
Okay, right. And one more thing I could show you, but maybe very quickly.
While you're doing that, we've been asked about, can you set classes up on Textivate, or is it just a question of creating the links?
You can set classes. So the classes I've set there, this is my class.
I see, sorry, yeah.
You just click on new class, and I'll call it Joe Dale. There we go, call it Joe Dale. And I'll put a student in it called Joe Dale. And I'll click on save, and it's now created a classroom called Joe Dale, and it's got a student called Joe Dale, and that's his password. So now Joe Dale now logs in to Textivate using my username, and he puts his individual password, which is that, into the individual student password box. And so that gives them student access then. And it also means that they're tracked throughout the activities, so that for sequences and challenges, which is the other thing I'll quickly demonstrate, the teacher knows who's doing what. Okay. So challenges was the other thing I wanted to quickly show you. A challenge is a scoreboard competition where students can have access to the activity menu, so they can choose any of the activities that they want to do, and they score points per interaction and depending on the accuracy of their interactions. When I say per interaction, I mean, for example, if you have an activity where you're typing lots of text, then every single click is an interaction. Every single letter that you type in is interaction, whereas if you're putting blocks of text in order, then every block is an interaction. So you can score many more points for doing the more challenging activities than you can for doing the much simpler ones. I'll quickly show you how we set that up. New challenge, we'll call it training. I'll add a resource. This is the resource that we've been working with. Click on that. So we've got our resource. It's automatically set for August 3rd. Well, you can do it for anywhere from 10 minutes, 5 minutes, I believe, to a month, or maybe even a couple of months. You can choose whether or not students' passwords are required. So those passwords that I mentioned before, you can decide whether it can only be accessible by someone who's one of your classes. And you can also set up team competitions so that all of the students, when they land on the challenge page, they'll be presented with a list of teams which you put into this team names box, rather than self-identifying with their own names. And so that's quite a nice way of getting people to work collaboratively. And also, if you have got the individual student password set up and you set a team challenge in this way, it means that although the students only see the total scores for the team, as this person who created the challenge and as the resource owner, you can click and you can see individual student contributions to each team. So you can see the points that each person scored towards the team total. I'll quickly
Excellent.
show
I
you
really like that, because someone was asking about how do you demonstrate learning taking place. So that was a really nice way of doing that, isn't it? I think to show achievement
and the sequences.
yeah. That's great.
And I'll quickly show you. We've got some parameters here. So auto check we want on where available. Split text by sentences and chunks, because that's the way we set up this activity, this resource. We'll show the word list, random order, no switching. Okay. So we save it, and that's that. And we now have a link, which I'll post here in case people want to have a quick play.
Yeah, please, that'd be lovely. Well, while you're doing that, we've had a couple of people asking about how much does it cost, unsurprisingly, and secondly, are there certain things that you have with different tiers? Is there like the share option, for example? Is that only for premium subscribers?
Yes. So
Okay.
the basic one, if you get the basic subscription, you're okay to work with it on Zoom, so that everyone else is looking at your screen, or in front of a class with a projector, and you can print worksheets. But you can't create any resources that you can share with anybody else, and you can't set up any sequences or challenges or anything like that.
Okay, but if you have the premium subscription, you can save each activity, so you have it like as a bank of resources. Is that right?
You save your resources, so and then from your resources you can create links, so you can either link to a resource or to a sequence or to an activity within a resource. So I think you've got something like 500. With premium you can store 500 resources, or maybe it's 1,000. I can't remember. It's quite a lot.
Okay.
I don't think if anybody ever reaches the limit, they usually tell me, and I say, okay, I'll bump it up again. It rarely happens.
Thank you.
Okay, and so the way that this works is, if I want to take part in this, I've already earlier on today self-identified, which is what you have to do on challenges, as Martin Lapworth, which is quite appropriate, I think. And then so I click through to the activities, and quickly to show you how they work. I do an activity, but now, maintenant, to share photos, partager des photos, I can, je peux. It's very easy to, il est très facile de. I find it hard, j'ai du mal. Okay, and it's told me I've got 36 points uploaded to the scoreboard. So at any point I can go back to the challenge menu and scoreboard, and I can see my points there. And if any one of your lovely students is self-identified with a rude word as their name, then you can delete them. I mean, there is something that filters out most rude words, but they're very inventive with their insults. You can select scores from there and just delete them. So as long as you're on top of that, you can make sure that it doesn't stay there too long. And this, if we click on this option here, the scoreboard will auto refresh every 30 seconds. So the students are working away and they see their points at the end of each activity. And every 30 seconds, the scoreboard that you got on the whiteboard will update, and you might see people jockeying for position there. And that's challenges. I see that nobody else has joined in, but that's not a problem. By the way,
I think this because they're all writing questions about the pricing and what have you. I mean, is it okay if we just take a moment, because I know this is obviously a really important point for people. So can I just let's have a look. Right? Okay. So Donna has written, I recently purchased the premium subscription in September. Can my 2 departmental colleagues simultaneously use this in their classes? Is there a top up for other teachers to use? I presume they would just get in contact with you and ask you about that. Can
they both use the same premium subscription?
Yeah, I think that's, I recently purchased the premium subscription in September. Can my 2 departmental colleagues simultaneously, so use it at the same time in their classes?
We don't allow simultaneous login, no. So if you're logged in one classroom and your colleague logs in with the same username in the next classroom, it will log you out and vice versa, which will get quite annoying. So
gotcha, right.
That's why we have a group subscription. A group subscription is slightly more than twice the price of a premium subscription. So if you've got 3 or more teachers, it's much it works out much more economical to have a group subscription. And many schools pay for group subscriptions, even they may only have 4 or 5 teachers that they want to use it. The group starts at 10 teachers, and that costs £120, compared with 50 for one premium subscription. Yeah. So if you have got 10 teachers, or you've got quite a large department, then it only costs £12 a head. So it's considerably more economical to do it as a group.
Fantastic. But presumably schools could combine together for a group subscription. We've had that question as well.
Yeah, I always get that question.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm just going to say what I said last time when Rachel Lucas asked me the same question, and which is that don't send me an email saying, is it okay if I do this? Because I'm going to say no. But if I don't know, I don't know, do I?
Yeah.
So if you order a group subscription and somebody's paying for it, I have no idea that you're from one school or two schools.
Okay.
Okay.
That's really kind of you. Thank you.
No, I'm going to move on to Textivate.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Because we're an hour in.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Right. If I take you back to, in fact, let's close all this. I'm going to go to TeachVid. Okay. Now, TeachVid. I'll show you a TeachVid resource, which is based on exactly the same text as the one we've been looking at for the whole of this session. Here it is. Okay. Now, on TeachVid, a TeachVid resource looks like this. So you have this picture here with the open resource option there. That's how you access the resource. You've got a description of the resource. You've got options for printing out PDFs, and you've got the resource transcript. You can see it's the same transcript as the one we had in the Textivate resource. The way that, or one way that TeachVid differs from Textivate is that it's all about the caption. Let me open the resource and show you what I mean.
Pendant mon temps libre, je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur. Et j'utilise mon portable régulièrement.
Okay. I'll just stop it there a sec. So you can see that, for example, there we have that caption being read out on the video, and we have underneath the video, we have our subtitle in French, and to the right we have the parallel text in English with that section of text in English highlighted. So there's much more of a focus on the specific caption that's being worked at any one time. Okay, so sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here.
No, don't worry. You're doing really well. So with the captions, does it mean that the original video has to have closed captions, or can you add them afterwards? Is that how it works? You add them.
I'll show you how to do that. I'll give you a very quick breakdown of how to create the resource in a minute after we look at it.
Because I'd have thought that TeachVid maybe is not as familiar with people compared to Textivate, so it might be an idea to do more like an introduction, as it were. I mean, I don't, whatever people want, but I think if there's time, it would be nice to sort of break it down into step by step, as it were.
Will do. Okay, so it's all about the captions. It's all about bilingual subtitles beneath the video there, which you can switch between English and French. And here you've got the full parallel text or the full transcript that you can switch between there. And we refer to this as learn mode. When you open the resource and you're just using the video player and you're looking at the captions, this is learn mode. And then when you access the activities, that's activity mode. The captions, you can also use the captions to navigate, so you can click on any of the captions to select the bit that you want to go to, or you can use these arrows to navigate through the text to different points in the video. Okay, this is we've also got a feature called auto pause. So this button here, if you click on this and you play.
Pendant mon temps libre, je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur.
Now, what that does is it means that the video automatically pauses at the end of that caption, giving the student time to make comparisons between the French and the English in this case. And it also allows you to click into the captions, into these predefined chunks that we've set up here. Okay, and what that does, for example, if I click on this one.
Pendant mon temps libre.
So it's read out by text-to-speech built into TeachVid. It shows you the English as well.
Je passe.
Je passe, I spend. We've added a note in there to say that we're referring to time here, and for money we'd use je dépense, and so on. So it's a really nice way to, if you have the kind of studious student who's going to be prepared to spend a bit of time looking through and studying the text in this way, it's a really good way of helping students to notice differences in how the different languages are structured and how they fit together. And it's a really good way also of showing how maybe you might differ, that your translation of a sentence might differ from the way you might translate different chunks of text. So for example, if we choose this.
Néanmoins, il faut toujours être prudent, car il est très facile de devenir accro.
So you can see that the English that we've put for il faut toujours être prudent, we've put you always have to be careful, because that's a fairly natural sounding sentence. But here, if we look at it on a chunk by chunk basis,
Il faut.
It's necessary.
Toujours.
Always.
Être prudent.
To be careful. And these chunks are, yeah, as I say, they're a really good way of showing people literal translation. So I know that a lot of people in their parallel text knowledge organisers, they like to use what they call dodgy translation or dodgy English, so that which kind of demonstrates to the student how the foreign language is structured, so that you structure the English in the same way that the French would be structured. If you get what I mean, it's like an extra clue to help the students with their translation or with their understanding of the French. And so you can choose to do that at the sentence level, or you can make the sentences look more natural, but use the literal translations in the chunks. We'll quickly look at a couple of activities. The activities are very similar to the activities on Textivate. There are fewer of them, just because it's all about the caption. So all of the activities in TeachVid are linked, just like when we were looking at the video there in Learn Mode with the auto pause turned on. They're all linked to a specific caption of the video, caption by caption. So what each activity does is it breaks down, for example, this activity.
Pendant mon temps libre, je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur.
So the activity will require the students to go through the whole text, and it breaks the text down into caption-linked mini tasks where the student has audio, so they can listen to the audio, and maybe there may be something on the video that will be of interest to them as well. They've got reference to the English translation, so they can see what it's supposed to say, and it also guides them in the structure of what they're trying to write. And they've also got context clues within the text itself, and this one requires the student to type in the answers. Beaucoup de temps.
Et j'utilise mon portable régulièrement pour envoyer des emails et j'utilise mon portable régulièrement pour envoyer des emails et pour partager des photos.
Okay, so what you have going on here within the TeachVid activities is a similar kind of thing as I was demonstrating towards the end with Textivate. You've got dictation going on, you've got listening skills, you've got word recognition, you've got sentence parsing, you've got translation from English, you've got context clues within the text reconstruction, you've got, you work towards the more difficult letters, you've got spelling, and you've got writing skills being tested as well. So there's a hell of a lot going on there through the different activities.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a couple of questions in the chat about asking whether it's possible to create your own videos, or does it have to be a video that you find on YouTube? And can you also record your own voice as opposed to using text to speech? Is that possible?
Yeah, of course you can. I was too embarrassed to record my own voice.
No, it's fine. Could you give us an idea on how you would do that? And can you set up like a sequence of activities as you can with Textivate as well?
Yes. I'll which more later. Yeah, I'll demonstrate.
No problem. I think maybe looking at the video, and yeah. So my understanding is then you find your video on YouTube, and then to add the transcript, that's something you personally do, is that right? So you can add your own text, yeah. Is that right?
You can usually copy a transcript from the YouTube captions as well, because I don't know if people realize that nearly all YouTube videos have got auto-generated captions, even if they're not been added by the video creator. And you click on the little menu option underneath the video, and it says something like access video captions, and then you can just copy them.
Right.
There is a button actually in TeachVid which allows you to try and grab those captions, but it's not been working for the last couple of weeks, so I think we may need to update the code on that. But so I'm not going to. But it says essentially, yeah, you can. I mean, I've created that video by using the Windows 10 Photos app, some photos from Pixabay, a text-to-speech generator which converts to MP3, and that's it. But you could quite easily just sit there with yourself on a microphone and read out a script. That's the simplest way to do it.
Yeah. Or take a PowerPoint and record a voiceover and export it as a video. So does it have, just be very clear then, does it have to be on YouTube even if you make your own, or can you upload it just into Textivate? I'm
afraid it does. TeachVid only works with YouTube videos.
Okay.
I know that may be a problem for some schools. Hopefully it won't be such a problem for them setting work outside class. But I knew that when I started, but I decided to go ahead anyway, because I just thought it's such a nice idea.
Yeah,
so
yeah, definitely.
People are using it, those who can use YouTube at school. Another thing I want to demonstrate quickly is,
Pendant mon temps libre.
Right, I mentioned it's all about the activities. Unlike in Textivate, your activity progress is stored in TeachVid per caption. So if you after each caption, you finish it, it'll record your scores up to that point. You can come out of the activity, or you can go back into it at any point.
Et j'utilise mon portable régulièrement.
Join the activity at the point where you left it. So this one, which I did before, I'm about a third of the way through.
Auparavant, je ne m'en servais pas beaucoup, mais maintenant, j'ai du mal à...
Okay, so yeah, so the progress is stored all the way, after each caption, which means that it's from the student's point of view, it means that they don't have to worry about finishing the whole thing before they see any evidence of progress. And so here we have.
Avec les réseaux sociaux, il y a bien sûr des avantages et des inconvénients.
So this is another activity I started earlier. We're joining it about a third of the way through, and this is basically pure translation dictation. Okay, I'll quickly show you the PDFs. I'm not going to show you them all as I wanted to, but Parallel, for example, prints the transcript and the translation side by side, caption by caption. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mix up is sort of like what people refer to as tangled translation. So it takes those chunks, it alternates English chunk, English, French. So during my free time, je passe, a lot of time sur mon ordinateur. And people can use this to either ask their students to write, I want you to write it all in French, or I want you to write it all in English, or both. Yeah. We've got jigsaw reading. So this splits the text down into a certain number of sections, which you can use along with the video or after watching the video or for homework or whatever. They just have to number them in the correct order. We've got gap fill. We can have a random gap fill, which is roughly 1 in 5 words, every 5th word. And you have a word list. And we can also predefine our own gaps. So we can select words here. So I can say, temps libre, ordinateur, envoyer, email, partager, photo.
That's great, isn't it? Very simple.
You just click on them, réseaux sociaux, and we can join words together like I've done there and separate them again. Imaginer, portable, nécessaire. I'm not going to carry on, but you get the idea.
No,
so
it's fine.
And then
It's
you just
fine.
click on
It's great.
print. But you can do that. Anyone who has access to the PDFs for a resource can do that with anybody else's resource as well. So it's not just for your own resources that you define these. And there's the word list again. And once you define the words in gap fill, you can also reuse those, for example, for an initials worksheet. So if we use select words, it'll reuse those ones that we used before. If we're not happy with those and we want to remove some of them, or we want to clear the whole selection, we can do that as well. Yeah.
That's great.
So that's.
So can you create sequences in the way that you can with Textivate?
Yeah. Can I?
Of course, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Go on.
So,
yeah, show us the other activities. That's fine.
I'll quickly show you creating the creation of a resource. I know that might sound like it's going to be an impossible task, but let's have a go. Copy link. I'm going to create this. I'm going to recreate this resource mostly using the video. Okay. So to do that, I'll demonstrate the process. I'm not going to pretend, obviously, that creating a resource in TeachVid is as easy as with Textivate, because as we've already established, for one, you need to have a YouTube video. And so if you haven't got a YouTube video based on the text that you want to use, then you have to create your own. Mm-hmm. I mean, that can take, it takes me a while, because I'm looking for Pixabay images, because I don't want to stand there in front of the camera just reading it out, which would be a much quicker and easier option. You could do that in 2 minutes, but I want to create something that looks a bit nicer and doesn't have my voice on it, because I don't like hearing myself. But there we go. So we go to resources, and we go to my resources, and we click on create new resource, and we paste in the video URL, and we choose a language. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just waiting for YouTube to catch up.
Pendant mon temps libre.
Okay, the first thing we can do, if we have a longer video, so it's not one that you've created yourself, but it's a song or a longer piece of video, and you want to take out a few sections, or you can set the beginning and start time for the video. So if this was a half-hour video and I just wanted 5 minutes, I could move the start time and the end time to just crop the video to the bit that I wanted to use. The next thing, we have the option to enable a transcript or reading resource. If we're working on parallel text, then that's what we do want to do. If we didn't do this and clicked on next here, we'd go through to a quiz, and a quiz allows you to make an Ed puzzle type quiz, multiple choice quiz, where the video stops at the specified point and asks you a question, and the student has to click to answer the question. So I'll go back because
So if you do enable the transcript option, it will automatically take the transcript from the video. It will work out whether the closed captions are being added. Is that what you mean?
No, it won't do that. I'll explain what I mean. So if we enable that, it means that we then have several screens, windows, which allow us to develop a transcript resource.
Okay.
About four steps, which if we don't want to do that, we just go straight to the quiz. So this is we're enabling a transcript resource. This is the button that did work up until very recently and it stopped working. So I need to get someone to look at the code for that and change it. But I've already got the transcript for this because we know what the text is. It's the one that we've been using all along. So let's copy that in. Montant libre, etc. Paste that in there. Okay, so that's our script. And we click on next. And the script should be set out like you'd expect any text to look. I mean, I know I've seen people make resources where they just do it, but there's no capital letters, no punctuation, and it doesn't make for a nice worksheet, and it doesn't make for a nice user experience at the end. It should look like a proper text at this stage. Okay, and then you click on next. And the next stage is to define the captions. You don't want to have really long captions and some really long ones and some really short ones. There are guides on the TeachVid blog about how best to do this. A guiding factor really should be the audio. Please don't try and split it at a point where the words are going so fast that there's no way you're going to be able to define the start and end of each caption properly. So try and make it fit nicely. So I'm going to split this one. I know this is nice and slow and it's got pauses in it anyway, so I haven't got a problem with this. So I'm going to split that down into... So
when you're recording it, you'd make a natural pause, presumably, knowing where you want to put the gaps.
It's good to do that, because if you're making your own, it makes it easier then to make the resource from it, because you've always thought about that in advance, So here we've got... I've now, if you see what I'm doing there to split those, so this started off as one sentence, and I've clicked there to separate it. So we've gone, and that splits that into two separate captions. And now we've split the whole thing into 10 captions. So as I showed you before, you can rejoin things together and you can split them at any point by clicking in between the words. Once you've defined your captions, you have to define the start and end times. So it's quite a process, but a resource like this one, where you already know the translation, you already know the transcript, shouldn't take you more than say 10 minutes to make. So
pendant mon temps libre, je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur.
So what I'm doing there is clicking on that hold to auto advance button, and what that's doing is it's auto advancing the video, and then I release it when I'm ready to stop recording. And we want to make our captions fit nicely, so I'm going to change the start time, so we start about half a second in, and this is what that caption now sounds like.
Pendant mon temps libre, je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur.
Okay, and then once we're happy with that, we're going to the next one. And you can move these selectors as well around. You can actually move them physically, but I find the easiest way is to use this.
Et j'utilise mon portable régulièrement pour envoyer des emails et pour partager des photos.
And I don't like that 1 second pause before that, because every time the student replays it, he's having to wait for that pause as well before he starts hearing the text. So if you bring it forward so it fits nicely.
Néanmoins, il faut toujours être prudent, car il est très facile de devenir accro. Avec les réseaux sociaux, il y a bien sûr des avantages et des inconvénients.
Let's change the start of that one slightly.
Avec les réseaux...
Okay, next.
Auparavant, je ne m'en servais pas beaucoup. Mais maintenant, j'ai du mal à imaginer ma vie sans les réseaux sociaux.
I hope people can see what I'm doing there. I'm using this hold to advance, or you can move these selectors as well, and these start and end buttons here, so you can change the start time or the end time. Each click represents about 1/10 of a second. Okay.
So essentially, you're putting markers in to show where all the chunks are.
Where the captions are. So what you're defining here is the caption. It's all about the caption as defined by you, and the start and end time as defined by you as well.
Mm-hmm.
Un portable est, pour moi, absolument nécessaire, car je peux faire des achats en ligne et télécharger de la musique. Avec mon portable, je peux aussi envoyer des textos à mes amis toute la journée.
and I'll finish the last one by letting it run to the...
Mais la plupart du temps, je l'utilise comme appareil photo.
Okay, let that run out to the end.
That's
Okay,
great. People are saying how useful it is to see it being done live, but presumably on the TeachVid blog, you've done video tutorials, have you, for each step?
I've recently done a video tutorial for the whole creation of a resource. So you can refer to that. It's about 20 minutes long. It pauses in a few places to let me do a few bits and bobs because it's a much longer text than the one we're using here. The next stage is optional, but it's not optional if you want to do parallel text resources. You need to have a translation for the parallel text to work. So this, fortunately, is Google Translate automated. So we can enable the translation. We can choose the language we want to translate it into, or we can click on Auto Translate to get all the translations. Now, ordinarily, I go through all of these and make sure they say exactly what I want them to say, but we're not actually going to finish this resource. So I'm just showing you the process. So imagine we've gone through those, made sure we're happy with all of those. The next step, can you believe it, there's another, is caption chunks. And chunks is optional, you don't have to do this. But what defining chunks does is it allows the multi-choice text readable activity to be based on several chunks, whereas if you don't define any chunks, all it is a one in three activity where the caption gets read, and you have to choose your caption from the 3 captions that appear. By adding in chunks, it makes it so that there's much more interactions involved, and it also means that the chunks that you define at this stage are also the ones that are used for the tangled translation activity, and this also defines the chunks of the notes that appear in learn mode when you're watching the video and you're clicking into the captions so that you can see the direct translations and so on. I'll just show you 1 or 2 of these, and then we'll abandon this and go back to something else. So if I want to break this down into meaning-based chunks, I could say, so just like as we did with the other bit, we just click between the words to separate them. If we want to, if we make a mistake, we can rejoin them again. It's not a problem. So I'll use those 4 chunks in my free time. You can see what I'm doing now is I'm selecting the text. I don't have to select all of it, because as long as I select within the word, it will grab it. And then I click on there to paste it in. I spend.
Oh, I like that. That's very nice, isn't it?
And this is where we can add in that note that I showed you before. So, for example, I said, oh, well, we want to make it clear that we don't use je passe to talk about I spend money. We use it so we can put in a note that says time. And then if we want to split our note so it appears on separate lines, we put semicolons in. So, and so we can say, for money, use je. And that will now appear if they click on that caption in learn mode, they'll see that information appear a lot of time on my computer. Oops.
Cool. People are loving that in the chat, Martin.
And we just work our way through this out, and j'utilise mon portable régulièrement pour envoyer des emails et pour partager des photos, for example. And then I use my laptop regularly to send emails and share photos, and that's and to share photos. Okay, and we work our way through. We've done 2 out of the 10. There's another 8 to do, and essentially that's the last step. And once you've done that, you can add a quiz if you want to. We're not interested in a quiz for this resource. And then we go to the final stage where we give it a title, a subject, a level, a category. We've already set this student language, which was our translation language. We're going to give a description, and we can set a resource access level. So it can be public and copyable by other users. Public and not copyable, which means it shows in the resource search, but people can't copy it. It could be unlisted, which means that you can share it with other people, but it won't appear in the resource search. Or it can be private, which means only you can access the resource page. But even for a resource which is private, so only you can access the resource page, you can still set live sessions and classroom assignments based on it. Okay.
Amazing.
I'm going to abandon this resource at this point, discard the changes.
So if you wanted to add the quiz option, is that straightforward? Is it just a question of...
You choose the point where you want the question, you add the question text, you add some answers, you say which one's correct, add, that's it. It's very straightforward.
So for the questions, is it like short answer or multiple choice, or what are the question types?
Multiple choice.
Multiple choice, right, okay.
Okay, I'm going to quickly show you them, classrooms and assignments. But before I do, just something I didn't mention before. Oops, there we go. I've officially got 10 minutes left.
You can go over it. It's fine. Don't worry. You'll be pleased to hear that Jocelyn had said this is making me giddy with joy. There we are.
Okay, that's good to know. Good job, be seated. Now, so I wanted to show you something here, which is that I talked about this.
Avec les réseaux sociaux, il y a bien sûr des avantages et des inconvénients.
Okay. Now, just as with the Textivate, when we've got the video and audio, we've got the English refer to, and we've got the mini task based on this section of the text, which requires some interaction from the student with context clues and whatever. But I didn't show you these two things here, so we don't have to use the video. We can remove the video, and then the focus is on translation. So there's no audio focus now at all. So we're combining now translation and text reconstruction and writing and context clues and so on. We can include the video and remove the text.
Avec les réseaux sociaux, il y a bien sûr des avantages et des inconvénients.
And so now our focus is on listening and dictation. Yeah. So we've changed the focus. We've still got some element of text reconstruction, memorization, all the rest of it, and writing and spelling. But now the main input for the student is the audio rather than the English text to translate. If we remove them both, we go back to the same position we were in at the beginning with Textivate, where you're creating a pure text reconstruction activity. Okay. I wanted to show you that because I wanted to show you that the same definitions can be made on classrooms when you're setting an assignment. So just like we could fine tune our activities and set parameters for our activities within sequences, we can do the same for our assignments in TeachVid. So I've gone to a classroom that I've set up for you. If you want to join this classroom, I'll put the link in the chat. Please join. There's the link, and the password is training with a capital T. Okay. I'll quickly show you how to set an assignment. It's super simple. I'll show you an assignment that uses our resource and has all of those parameters that we set before. So I'll set one that's multiple choice, just with the video as a practice, and with a pass mark of 90%.
While you're doing that, Martin, I think you sent the. Oh no, sorry, it's all right. Don't worry. Sorry, we got the link. I thought you'd sent the link to someone privately, but the link's now been copied in the chat, so everyone's got it now. Brilliant.
Okay. Am I writing to Helen Myers privately? Maybe
I think you were, but I think the idea.
Where else to write? I have to say.
Oh, does it not? If you click on the
everyone in meeting,
the name at the top, it'll say everyone in meeting.
Right. Okay.
No worries.
So the link's there, and the password is training with a capital T.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and now, so we can add more activities here. So I'll add another activity, which is a gap spell activity with video and translation, practice activity with a pass mark of 70, add activity. If we decide we want to change the order of activities, we can do that by clicking on those little arrows here that appear above it. I'll add another activity. This one's going to be a jumble activity with translation only, practice, pass mark of 70%, add activity. Next one, I'll add a space activity. We're going to make this one activity only, so it's pure text reconstruction, practice, text pass mark of 50%, add activity, and finally an assessment. I'm going to add an initials 100. Oh well, there's a lot of people on TeachVid suddenly.
Oh. Do you need an email to log in from that link? You know,
if you've already, I've asked people repeatedly to register on TeachVid. You need to register.
That's true. Yeah, you did. Fair play. You did. Yeah.
If you follow that link and you're not registered and you can't log in, it'll take you to a registration page.
There we are. Thank you.
So this one's going to be video and translation, and it's going to be an assessment, and we're going to set a pass mark again of 50%. Okay. So we have 5 activities, 4 which are practice activities and 1 which is an assessment. Next. Training assignment, some notes we can add there. There's my notes, good luck. We can set it for anything from, I think, 5 minutes to 2 months, I believe, an assignment. And we can show a resource preview, which allows us to see the resource in learn mode. So if I set the assignment, you'll see how that works.
So just to clarify on that point, after the webinar, could people still carry on having a go with the assignment? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
By all means.
Cool.
I'll leave it all available for a week or so, maybe.
Thank you.
I've got no reason to remove it. So here's the one we just created. It appears in red on mine. I don't know if it does for the students. I think it does because it's due soon. I think in fact, it's due in the next hour. So that's why it appears in red. If we click there, we can access the activities. The preview is learn mode.
Pendant mon temps libre.
Pendant mon temps libre. Je passe.
We have all the same functionality that we have from the resource page. Multi-choice. So this is the one where we have the video only.
Pendant mon temps libre, je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur.
And as you can see, I've left that activity and it's stored my progress. So if I go back into it, it'll join it at the same place. This is our gap fill activity with video and translation.
Pendant mon temps libre, je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur. Et j'utilise...
And this is the jumble activity with just translation. And this is the space activity, which is pure text reconstruction. So we've got no clues there. By the way, if you don't know, you can click on this thing here, which buys you an answer, but it affects your score massively, just like it does on Textivate.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, that's a help. So if you're not sure of the instructions for an activity, it's on every activity screen. And this is the one that we set up as an assessment. You can see it's video and translation, and it's an assessment with a pass mark of 50%. It looks different. You can see it's got assessment mode on, and it's in black, so it's clear to the student.
Pendant mon temps libre, je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur.
Basically, the way that assessment mode differs from normal practice mode is that it's not waiting for you to get it right. It's just taking your first answer. So just type anything, it'll put the correct letter in. So what the student's trying to do is get the correct letter. If they get it wrong, they'll be told what it should have been. But the point is that if they just get it wrong repeatedly, they're never going to score very highly. And if you set a pass mark, they're going to fail anyway. So, and then they'll have to repeat it anyway. So that's the way assessment mode works.
Fantastic. Do you have a time limit at all for that? I mean, could the students have like a second device and look up the text on Google Translate, for example?
I guess they could do, you know.
Yeah.
There's no accounting for the ingenuity of our students.
Yeah. We had a question about what would you recommend as an ideal number of activities in a sequence for TeachVid? What do you think?
I would say it would depend on the length of the text. So if you're working with a text that's like 4 minutes long and has got a lot of writing in it, then don't set them a dozen activities each one requiring them to write out the text. You need to think, I mean, as with Textivate, it's a matter of familiarization with the activities themselves. I know it would be nice if you could just say, well, I don't know anything about this, but I'll just set them an activity potluck kind of thing. But it really does help if you're familiar with the activities and how easy and hard each activity is relative to the others, and have some idea of how long it's likely to take the students to complete it. It will be, be a lot easier for you. Okay, I'm going to close that now, and I want to show you one more feature, and then we're finished. And I think I've done quite well.
I think you've done brilliantly, Martin. I think you've, considering all the questions and everything, I think you've done absolutely fantastically.
I'm just seeing who's joined. Oh, we've got quite a lot of people here then. These are all my students that have joined. Excellent. And so if I don't know if people have been doing the assignment there that we've just done now, I should be able to see some progress. Oh, wow. There's all the people. It's not looking good, people. Oh, one person's finished an activity, Simon Clark, 93%. So I can see assignment completion. So no one's completed the whole assignment. Activity completion as a percentage of all of them, based is probably worked out 0% based on how many people we have there. And the average score is based on total assignment score. And if I also go to the students tab on here, I can click on the person's name and see what assignments have been set and if they've completed them and what scores they got for them and so on. I want to show you one more thing now, which is nice. It's a live session, and what this is it's a bit like the challenge on Textivate. It's a competition based on students choosing activities in any order that they want to do based on the resource that you include in the live session. And as with Textivate, the scores that you score are based on the number of interactions and the accuracy of interactions. If you have if you choose an activity that only has a total of a dozen clicks through the whole activity, but it's just clicking that chunk, clicking this chunk, clicking the next chunk, then you're not going to score very many. But if you choose an activity that's got lots of typing in it, then there's a potential for scoring many more points. So I'll quickly show you set up a live session, and people have a play. I want to see your names appear on the scoreboard. We'll use the same resource. I think, why not? I mean, yeah, why not? So this finishes in an hour's time, but we can change it. And what time is it now? Let's make it
21:32 or 22:32 if you're in Spain.
7 minutes 45 seconds to complete this. We can choose whether students only have access to each activity once. That's quite a good thing to do if you want to focus them to stay in the activity, so they don't, for example, do a couple of captions, then leave, and then go to another one, do a couple of captions and leave. If you select this option, it means that if they leave an activity, that's it, they're finished, they can't go back into it. So they've got to make sure they get most points they can from each activity. But I'll leave that out so that you can dip into the different activities. If I click now on go live, 7 minutes remaining. I hope this works because we're all in different time zones. It takes a few seconds for it to set it all up, but then you'll see the options appear. Okay?
Karine was saying in the chat this works really nicely with songs in particular that she's used it with. Yeah.
So I'll quickly show you. So I'll try and get something on the scoreboard.
Pendant mon temps libre, je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur.
Note what happens after this final click.
Et j'utilise mon portable régulièrement pour envoyer des emails et pour partager des photos.
TeachVid is all about the caption. I can't pause it, by the way, so if I could pause it to talk, I would, but I can't. Once we're in the activity mode, it refuses to pause. Yeah, so it's all about the caption. So after each caption, you're scoring points that appear immediately on the scoreboard. So I've only done one caption. I've scored 400 points there, it tells me already. Oh, wow. So there's people on the scoreboard. That's good to see. Okay, and this is updates every 10 seconds roughly. So you'll see as people do the activities. So I'm in position 9 out of 13 people currently competing. I've chosen to, by default, it only shows the top 10 scores, and the students can only ever see the top 10 scores. So if they're not in the top 10, they won't see their score appear in the table, but they do see their score because that's 400 that you can see there. Can you see my mouse on here?
Yeah.
Okay. So that 400 there, that's my point score so far. So even if you don't appear in the table, you can see your point score. But the teacher can see all of them by clicking on this and expanding it. Yeah. So I can see I'm right at the bottom now. It's not looking good for me. So
Pendant mon temps libre, je passe beaucoup de temps sur mon ordinateur.
Demonstrating how you can score many more points with text entry activities.
Et j'utilise mon portable régulièrement.
That should have bumped me up a bit. Come on, wait, I'm waiting for the scoreboard. Yeah, straight to the top, you see. So if you choose the text entry activities and you're accurate in what you're typing, you'll go straight to the top of the scoreboard. And that's basically all I wanted to show you. The only thing left to say, really, is that obviously, as someone has mentioned songs, the beauty of TeachVid is that, I mean, it works great with your own video that you've made based on your own parallel text knowledge organizers or whatever, but it can turn any video into a parallel text. So it turns a song into a parallel text, or a poem into a parallel text, or whatever. I mean, I'll quickly show you some examples.
So just to be clear then, with the live session, you start the live session, but the students don't need to do anything. They just go to the link that you shared previously. Is that right?
If you set a classroom, because we just did that within a classroom, I'll quickly show you. I can also set another one. If I choose a music resource here, we've got Plus Tard by Big Flo and Ollie. And so we can set a live session directly from here. And we can also set an assignment directly from here for our classroom. Nice. So with the live session, that gives us the option to set within our classroom. If I choose to set within the classroom, it will overwrite the one that's already there and it will end the current session, which is due to end in a couple of minutes anyway. But we can also set a temporary live session, which doesn't give you the same access to student scores at the end. It only shows you an overall point score. I haven't shown you that the live session for that people are currently working on in the classroom. I'll be able to see a breakdown of interactions per activity and scores per activity and the total number of scores. Whereas on a live session, all you get to see, a temporary live session, which can last for up to a week. So it's more limited, but you can make as many of these as you like. I'll also set this one to finish. Right, there you go, in 9 minutes time. We'll include everything, go live. And now what this does now, it creates something which is accessible through the live tab, the live menu option here. So exactly that, you've got all the same features going on there, all the same functionality, and this is how you access it. So if you were to click into the click onto the, if you're finished with the live session in the classroom, if you now click onto the live menu option at the top of the screen, and then you click on join classroom and you type that code into the box, you'll join this live session and you'll be able to have points for this activity as well. So you can have several of these competitions all going on at once. You can only actually have one classroom live session going on, which gives you the full breakdown of all the scores. But this functionality, by the way, is even available to people who haven't got subscriptions, because anybody can create a temporary live session based on resources they've created themselves, and based on any what we call featured resources, which are marked throughout Textivate with a gold star to show that they're available to everyone. Okay, so people have already started playing this. Okay, and so
yeah, that's great. Thank you.
It works great with music because it's this kind of thing.
Big Flo et Oli. Tu connais, non? Quand j'étais petit, je pensais qu'en louchant trop, je pouvais me bloquer les yeux.
So you see all the same things are going on. You've got your parallel English text, you've got your audio for support, you've got your interaction with the L2 text and the text reconstruction, just as before.
Que les cils sur mes joues avaient le pouvoir d'exaucer les vœux.
Exaucer les vœux means to grant wishes.
Quand j'étais petit, je pensais que les...
Okay, so that's TeachVid. And
yeah, there's a lot, isn't there? There's a lot there. I had no idea you could do so many different things. It's amazing. Can we just look back at the activity type? So is there matching, for example, as well as no. Well, that was one of the questions.
Ah, right. Okay. Well, there is a sort of a plan. I'll go back to the resource page to show you rather than through this one.
No problem.
And
people have asked about pricing, of course. If you can maybe clarify the pricing towards the end, and is it possible to have a bundle of TeachVid and Textivate together?
No to the second one, because they're separate business entities, unfortunately. Right. They're not all entirely mine. So, and they've got a bit different business, different structures, different currencies. One charges in pounds, the other charges in euros. One uses automated online payment via Braintree. One is place an order online and I send you a PayPal invoice. They're different. So unfortunately, I can't do that. But I can show you the pricing in a sec. Just to show you the activities. These are all working with the text. They're all working with the text. So these are blocks of text, the red ones. This is a gap fill without, and this is clicking. This one's spelling. This one's separating the words. This is jumbled words, so you're putting the words in order. And all the rest of them, these orange ones here, are all different levels of text entry using a randomly selected 50% of the text. And these blue ones do the same thing with all of the text. There isn't any matching because because we're linking all of the activities directly to the little section of video playback. So it sort of is matching within that little time frame, but there isn't something outside of it which is just matching activities, vocab activities. Now there is a plan possibly to do that. I think we probably will do that. And that's one of the reasons why I emphasize the need for defining those chunks during the creation process, because it's those chunks that will probably end up being the main basis for matching worksheets and activities when we eventually do add them, but that won't be any time in the next couple of months.
Fantastic. It's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing, Martin. Is there anything else you wanted to show us before we sort of finish up?
I'll answer the question about
apart from the pricing, of course. Yeah, always the question people want to know. Yeah.
See, it looks from that as if a teacher is zero. The reason for that is because I'm logged in, and that's the plan I'm on. So once you're already registered and subscribed, let me have a look. I'll log out, and then you should be able to see the difference. Okay. So the pricing, premium students is something that if you want your students to access Textivate, TeachVid, and have full access to all of the activities for all the resources, then they can do that for $2.90 a month. So if you've got A-level students that you want to encourage them to do more listening and reading and all, more exposure to language and all the activities and so on, then they can do that. There is obviously if they're just doing it by themselves, they won't be part of a classroom, so they won't have assignments and they won't have live sessions. But they can just access any of the resource. It stores their progress. They can go back to it and look at it and so on. So it's a great way of practicing. A teacher can either pay monthly at €9.90 or yearly at £79.90. So it's quite a saving. It's about 2/3 of the price if you do it yearly rather than monthly. But obviously with monthly, you've got the option to unsubscribe for those months that you don't want to use it and then resubscribe again. You can add premium students as part of your subscription. This is not necessary, as it states here, they are optional. You would only really do that if you particularly wanted to give your students premium access. That means that beyond setting them assignments and setting them live sessions that you're in control of, you want them to have full access to all of the video activities for all the resources on TeachVid. Okay, and the pricing for that is, I think it works out 100 for 100 students, but if you choose 1,000 students, it's less. What does that work out to? About $650 for 1,000 students. But as I say, that's optional. And the same applies to the school. If you want to buy a school subscription, which is 2 or more teachers, you can have anywhere between 2 and I think 50 teachers as part of a school subscription. So it's €120 for 2 teachers, but then it only goes up by about €12 per additional teacher. So if you want 10 teachers, it's nowhere near 10 times this.
Right. Yeah, because someone was asking specifically, for example, if there were 6 people in the department, how much it would be, etc.
Yeah, so 6 people would pay that.
There we are.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Very reasonable.
I think I've said all I need to say. Unless there are other questions that people want.
I don't think so. I think we've had 1 or 2 questions this evening, but I think we've done really well. I think I hope I've answered everyone's question. If you haven't, feel free to check out. I'm sure there's an FAQ on TeachVid or Textivate, or contact Martin directly. Someone said about if they're in a sort of a cash-strapped school, which would you recommend over Textivate or TeachVid? If it was you, if you had that choice, which one would you go for, Martin? That's a really difficult question, I suppose. But
it's difficult because it depends what you focus. Good
answer. Yeah, depends what you focus. Yeah.
If you want something that's very quick to make resources, Textivate, because it is super quick. And at its simplest, it's just copy paste the text, upload it, and you've got activities. You can then start adding all those extra things like the translation and matching items and blah blah blah. But you don't have to do that. At its simplest, it's super simple. If you want to, I mean, my hope is, and we're seeing this, that the resources available on TeachVid keep growing, and obviously they will keep growing as more people join up. So you'll find that the TeachVid over time becomes a tool that is okay to use, even if you don't want to create your own resources, because there's lots of other stuff or content on there that you can use as well. And there's all kinds of stuff there that's great for developing listening skills. I mean, I've only shown you basically one using text to speech and then one song, but there's all kinds of other things that are things from, un jour, un actu, and all those kinds of things, and news articles and all sorts of things on there.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's an incredible resource that you've made. I mean, as I sort of was saying earlier, I think that probably most people know about Textivate, but maybe don't know about TeachVid. So I think it's been really useful to go through, a step-by-step process, particularly the live session when you were doing the adding in the gaps. I think that was particularly useful. But it's been a great session. Thank you so much, Martin, for offering your time. And I think at the height, we had about 250 people watching live, which was incredible. And I'm sure you're going to get lots of signups as a result of this. It's just been great.
Scoreboard. And just to show you the data that I referred to before, so you can see for each person, this is what, for example, Simon Clark did. Multi-choice, he finished it, he got 51 out of 52 interactions correct, and so on. So you get quite a breakdown of student performance for the live session there. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
It's always nice that when you have these sorts of competitions to see who is the most competitive teacher, or when I'm in a face-to-face session, I always find that quite amusing when you're doing things like Quizlet Live or what have you. But yeah, that's excellent. Thank you so much. It's great.
Okay.
So I think we've come to the point where if you want to unshare your screen, if you've shown us everything, Martin, and then we can all give Martin a very much deserved round of applause. Although I'm not sure if you can turn on your microphones actually, but we can. Anyway, I'll give you a round of applause. I think that was fantastic. You can all give yourself a round. Yeah, you can give yourself. I don't know if you can turn your. Anyway, let's all. Yeah, there we are. There we are. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Brilliant. Thank you so much, everybody.
Well done, Martin.
Thank you very much. Great. Thank you very much for attending, everybody. I look forward to reading through the chat because I've read none of it so far. So
yeah. Well, I'd have thought actually, because obviously the chat's there. I think there's a problem with sharing the chat with you. I'm sure it's not a GDPR thing because it's obviously happening right now. Therefore, it's just the fact you're presenting. I'm sure that's absolutely fine. So yeah, that's great. Excellent.
And is that Simon, the one who won?
Yeah, Simon Clark.
You? You clearly weren't listening to Sir. You were doing that while you should be listening to him. Just thought I'd say it.
There we are. And there we have it. As I said, it's always nice to see who the competitive ones. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming along, and particularly to Martin. I think that's been a really, really useful session.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, great. Oof.
Thanks then. Bye.
Bye,
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Great.
Nice to see you too.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Right. Lovely. So yeah, I'll send you the chat, Martin. Or actually quicker, what would be quicker, Martin, is if you put your mouse in the chat and just do Control A, and then you'll just select all and then Control C and copy it, and then you've got it. That's what I normally do.
Got it.
Yeah, is that all right?
Somewhere else coming. Okay, great.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording now, and then I will publish it probably this evening onto YouTube, and you'll all be able to get the link, and Martin's going to put it on his YouTube channel as well. So yeah, that's been great. I'll stop recording now.